Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm your host Nathan, and joining me are my co-host Callum and James. Today we'll be reviewing the latest film from the Dungeons and Dragons franchise, Honor Among Thieves.
That's a weird thing I never thought I'd hear people say. The new... Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah, we know.
Start again.
No, continue, Callum. You had something to say.
Oh, no, just the fact that we're getting a new Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Okay.
We talked about this before. All right, let's start again, and we'll
Start again. This will get cut out of the podcast.
Yeah.
Welcome to the Tuesday Review. I'm your host Nathan, and joining me are my co-hosts Callum and James. Today we'll be reviewing the latest film from the Dungeons and Dragons franchise, Honor Among Thieves.
As a huge fantasy nerd, I was excited to see this one, and I have to say it did not disappoint. The action was intense, the magic was spellbinding.
I couldn't agree more, Callum, but what really stood out to me was the costume and production design. From the intricate armor to the stunning set pieces, the attention to detail was impeccable.
As always, you guys have covered the bases. For me, the film was a solid addition to the franchise. While it may not have been groundbreaking, it was entertaining and stayed true to the source material.
Absolutely, Nathan. And with that, we'd like to thank our listeners for tuning in. Be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter for more reviews and updates. Until next time, remember what Kevin Costner said in Waterworld. Dryland is not a myth. I've seen it.
And I can vouch for that.
That was rough. We rehearsed this before, and Callum, that's all right. Look, welcome to the Tuesday Review.
Yeah,
it's been a long day.
As always, joined by Callum and James. How you going, guys?
Good.
That intro was provided to you by ChatGPT.
Yeah. So
today we will be talking about Dungeons and Dragons,
yeah,
but also the looming spectre of AI that we can't solve.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence.
So last week we couldn't make it to the studio, so we released a bonus episode that we recorded the week before. And at the end of that episode, we started talking about AI, and we're like, wouldn't it be funny if we got AI to write a review, like to intro.
Yeah.
So that review you just heard was generated by ChatGPT after I put in the prompt, write a script with 3 characters, Nathan, Callum, and James. They are hosts of a movie review podcast called The Tuesday Review. Nathan introduces the show, each co-host, and the topic from the episode, which is their review of Dungeons & Dragons. Each character gives a 1-sentence review of Dungeons & Dragons. Nathan is laid back, Callum likes the fantasy elements, and James appreciates the costume and production design. They conclude with an outro that mentions the Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Thanks to the audience for listening, and ends with their signature sign-out phrase from a Kevin Costner movie. So, if listeners don't remember, our sign-off Adios Cousins is from Waterworld.
Not anymore.
Yeah, I thought it would be funny if we just told ChatGPT to make our sign-out phrase a
Kevin Costner quote.
And the first one that actually came out was Dryland is not a myth. I've seen it, which I thought was hilarious. But then when I kept regenerating to see what other options the ChatGPT would make, it would just pick random things from random Kevin Costner movies, like, from Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. And I was like, they got really silly. But yeah, it was the thing is, I just did it quickly, for the goof at the start of the episode. But the more prompts you put in,
the more you specify and get more detail orientated with it.
And because, it's obviously, it sounds very robotic, especially when we read it off.
Because, it's inorganic sound.
Yeah. But, I think what's interesting is, you can, the whole thing is you can train it. So, if you tell it, oh, Callum speaks like this and I speak like this, eventually...
You can say, do it the same, but Callum's more sarcastic.
Yeah.
That kind of stuff.
Yeah. Well, actually, Alan was supposed to be here, and I was generating some with Alan, and I always, because Alan's, our resident jokester, always making inappropriate jokes. So I wrote that, I told ChatGPT, we're reviewing the movie, but Alan makes an inappropriate joke. But that's too vague for ChatGPT. It doesn't know what to do. It doesn't know what joke to make.
Yeah.
So, it would just, Alan would just say, I like making inappropriate jokes. Or, I like Dungeons & Dragons. It had many inappropriate jokes. And then eventually I kept regenerating it. And then Alan, it says, I'm just here for the shirtless guys and the inappropriate jokes. And I'm
I'm
like,
like, closer.
where did that come from?
Yeah.
So I think what's funny is like the more vague you are,
Yeah.
the funnier the results can be. But
also it can be
the
less
more
on target.
the more detail you give it,
Yeah, and
like
you know
the
what-
more accurate it gets.
What's so interesting about it is you can feed it, if you have access to the API or whatever, you can actually feed it information to build up on it.
Yeah.
So, like, you could get a transcript of all of our past episodes, feed it into it, and then it would actually provide you a more or less accurate review of a film. Obviously, it wouldn't have our opinions, but
Yeah.
it'd produce commentary that sounds like something we'd complain about.
So it'd just be complaining about CGI the whole time.
Yeah, no, but my point is, like,
if we
if you
taught
had-
it to do that,
if you have more resources,
eventually it would know.
If we had more resources, we could actually generate fake reviews. Not that we would do that to you listeners. Our
No.
reviews are fake enough
This
as
is
it
just a goof. Like, we obviously wouldn't do this, but
But it's interesting when you look at it from that mindset. It's like you could generate content.
yeah.
You know, and we don't generate content on this show. You know, we're
Oh,
very
we generate
much...
tons of content.
No, but we
Well,
earnestly...
our own content.
but-
Yeah.
Yeah, but we earnestly
Yeah.
review movies. We don't just, you know, we're not...
Yeah. Our opinions are our own.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
But yeah, it was just a fun because that last episode we released was like just the thing we recorded, but then we couldn't do our normal show, so we released that one, and we thought, it'll be funny to do that. I did re-listen to that episode, and I did notice some crackling, popping, some skipping in the audio. So hopefully it doesn't affect this episode as well. If it's an ongoing problem,
Look, I think we should be able to bring a laptop. Well, it depends what the problem is.
yeah,
'cause
we have to
don't
figure
know-
out because we
if it's the internet PC in the studio, we can fix that ourselves by bringing in a
Yeah,
laptop. If
but-
it's the broadcasting computer, then we have more issues.
Yeah, because listeners might remember, we've been having technical issues in the studio, but like we've been pretty much going around, getting around that every week. But if it's going to start happening as this as well, yeah. So just bear with us. Hopefully this episode is unaffected. I don't know because we can't monitor it at the moment, but yeah, hopefully it's listenable. And yeah, we'll try to fix that if we can. Yeah, but D&D.
Look, I enjoyed it.
so should we
Yeah,
do a-
before
should
we
do a
get
quick-
into that, listeners,
some backstory.
yeah. So if listeners listen to episode 140, that's where we talk about all the Dungeons and Dragons drama. So if you haven't heard that, go listen to that first, episode 140, where we basically the nutshell version, without going over it all again, is that Hasbro, the big parent company who owns Wizards of the Coast, who created Dungeons and Dragons and who own Dungeons and Dragons, they decided to revoke the open game license, which was basically the thing that allows players to
Create their own content for the game.
yeah
and
use
sell it.
use their own imaginations to create their own
Market their own content, yeah.
content for Dungeons and Dragons. It's been a long-standing thing. It's never been a problem before until the company was like, no, you can't have this anymore. And there was a huge backlash from fans.
Yeah.
And one of the main protests from fans was to boycott the Dungeons and Dragons movie.
Yeah.
And
So-
I was happy to do that because I
Yeah.
don't like rewarding these giant corporations who make these awful decisions.
So it's worth noting that out of all of Hasbro, apparently Wizards of the Coast was the only really profitable part. And
That's strange.
yeah, well, toys don't make a lot of money anymore.
Yeah, but Hasbro, that would make would they have a video game department?
I don't know. But I read that
It's a big company.
the reason that they
Anyway.
wanted to do all this stuff to Dungeons and Dragons was to shore up profits because they need D&D to be profitable, Wizards to be profitable. So it's like, of course, Magic the Gathering is like 50% of Wizards, and then D&D's the other 50%. So
Yep.
Magic's always like the most popular card game
Mm.
of all time. Actually, well, that's Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So when they decided that the Dungeons and Dragons brand was being underutilized, they had to find ways to remedy that, which was, of course, revoking the license and owning the license. The new license was to have them owning community-generated content, so they could use it without paying
royalty.
the developers and such.
Yeah.
And so we joked that, instead of rewarding the bad behavior, we would just rewatch the old movie, which I haven't done, which I actually want to do.
Yeah, if we had time, we would have done that, but unfortunately.
But then, one day we woke up and we saw that they did the only thing that I said to James off air.
Yeah.
That the only thing that could possibly bring me to love them again.
Yeah.
And they did it. They made Dungeons and Dragons community commons or Creative Commons.
Yeah.
So it's like owned by the community, kinda.
Yeah. So
that like you can use the rule sets for Dungeons and Dragons for free legally. You don't have to pay. You can download the entire book, including monster spells and stat blocks. Which, if for those who don't really care about D&D, that's huge news because that was like brand identity is a core thing.
Yeah.
They just let people say Mind Flayer now. I can say Mind Flayer on this show and they can't do a thing about it.
Yeah, we own Mind Flayer now.
Yeah.
Take that, Stranger Things. But so that's the nutshell version is they did something awful. Everyone got angry and decided to vote with their wallets, and the company had to relent and basically give people back what they wanted. And so Callum being like the main our resident dungeon master and our main like who's mostly into D&D. Yeah. I deferred to him. I said, "Look, if you're okay not boycotting it, then we'll go see it. But like I'm happy to continue to not
Look, it's like I
support
think we might have talked about it on the show. I'm not sure.
I think we did.
But it's such a gesture of goodwill to me. The fact that they did what they did, it still blows my mind.
Yeah.
Like if you would, it still blows my mind. The fact that it's in the Creative Commons, it still blows my mind.
Yeah.
So it's like they can't undo that. It doesn't belong to them anymore. You know what I mean? It's like I said on the show, it belongs to everybody now. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go see Dungeons and Dragons. Not because it's a Hasbro film, TM,
Yeah.
It's like, well, no, it's based on a property that belongs to all of us.
Yeah.
Obviously, it's not. We don't own the branding. We don't own the licenses and the likenesses or whatever.
Before all this drama, we would have seen it anyway.
Yeah.
But it's just after the drama, I was like, do we really want to? And then because the company capitulated, if that's the right word.
Yeah.
Callum was like, yeah, we should go. And then I was just like, okay, I think it comes out next week. And then I was like, oh, it actually comes out tomorrow. Yeah. Should we just go? And so we saw it a few days ago. It was pretty good.
Yeah. It was not bad.
It's nothing special.
It was fun.
It's like a fun fantasy.
I didn't know what to expect going in, right? Because we talk about fantasy. And we're like, fantasy's not the huge property it used to be anymore. I mean, it's become a very, fantasy's become more of a Marvel thing, and they do it in their own very specific way.
In movies, it's never been... there's always been lots of fantasy movies, but other than like Lord of the Rings, it's like... We've talked about it before. It's like, it's always been really hard to bring to the...
It costs too much. Yeah. And it's too risky.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Basically.
Yeah.
If it's not a mega hit, it's not worth doing.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I didn't know what to expect. And I was pretty surprised by it. Well, not surprised. I want to say it was what I expected, but at the same time, it was a bit different than what I expected it.
I didn't expect so many puppets.
Yeah, I think it was
like,
about...
It wasn't a large amount, but I didn't expect any at all.
It was about as what I was expected, but I did appreciate some of the practical elements. But yeah, there was still a lot of CGI. It does look and feel like a lot of modern superhero kind of movies. There's a lot of that Marvel kind of jokey humor.
It's hard to escape it.
Yeah. And I mean, it's enjoyable enough, but yeah,
it didn't go over the top of the humor.
I think
it had its moments, but it did rein it in to progress the plot.
I don't know. Like, I feel like most of the jokes didn't land. That was a big problem.
That's a D&D movie. What do you expect?
Well, that's the thing. I was like,
you expect the nerds playing D&D to be funny?
Yeah, that's the thing with
the jokes never land at the tabletop either, James.
Yeah, but
authenticity, man.
They don't have to land. You just have to get the right rolls. Doesn't matter if they're funny.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But like. That's the thing is if you're adapting Dungeons and Dragons, and the filmmakers, the writers and directors who directed Game Night, which is a great movie.
Great
and so
movie.
that's the only
Fantastic
reason this movie isn't a flaming,
mess, yeah.
pile of trash, is because they, have some sense. But like if you're adapting D&D, it's like part of the D&D experience, if not the biggest part, is what we've talked about before, which is the actual friends getting together, making things up, and having a good time.
Yeah, it's the adventure of the party as a whole as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, and we talked
Collaborative
about
storytelling.
we talked about this on another episode where the filmmakers decided not to have the meta aspect of the players in the real world playing the game.
Yeah.
And it's just like, this is a real fantasy world that exists. And I appreciate that. They stuck to that. This is a fantasy world, and there's no meta moments where you see a player outside of the game, or there is a reason why the jokes are a certain way. It's because the player's playing. No, there's none of that in the movie.
Yeah.
But yeah, that means the movie, on one hand, I would have liked them to play it a bit more seriously.
Yeah.
But also, most D&D campaigns probably aren't that serious.
No.
'Cause when friends get together, they make funny things, and characters have funny names, and they do silly things. Especially you boys, like,
Not me.
once, yeah.
I'm the straight man. Don't look at me.
Yeah.
All I'm saying is, look, as a group, we've been to PAX and we've won unwinnable games.
Yeah, by
With
doing
creative problem solving,
things the creator was like, wait, what?
basically.
But you know what I mean, like,
Have imagination.
but like,
Yeah.
yeah, it's just like watching it, I'm like, if they've just played it a bit more straight, it probably would have been better. But also, I'm like, I guess this is what sells now, this kind of MCU style humor.
That's one of the things where I'm sure the studio was like, we want this kind of vibe.
That's the other thing, yeah.
Because like you said, unfortunately, it's what sells. The kids get a kick out of it as well. Because D&D has always been for everybody, and that includes children. So it's like you do have to, with it specifically a D&D property, you do have to hit those bases.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying it should be like Game of Thrones style of dark fantasy.
No.
But
Yeah, but that means the cringe jokes are going to have to be in there because that's what the kids
We're
enjoy.
just lucky no one was flossing.
yeah.
I wouldn't mind it. A big ogre flossing might be okay. But that's
No.
God damn.
We didn't go full like zoomer. It was okay.
Yeah. No, none of it was like really cringy or anything, but just a lot of the humor didn't land, especially coming from the guys who did Game Night, which is a very well made, very funny movie.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a movie written by them.
I think the filmmaking in this was very plain, whereas the filmmaking in Game Night was what bumped it up. Bumped it up a notch.
I also wonder how much. Do you think there was much interference with the studios?
Oh, there would have been heaps.
Like, because Game Night obviously is a very safer movie to make.
Smaller
right?
budget,
It's smaller budget,
more
it's
contained,
safe,
yeah.
more contained. Whereas, you got Hasbro being like, this can't fail.
Yeah,
Like,
Hasbro
They would have got
really-
a lot of studio
So
interference.
apparently they had a lot riding on the success of this film. A lot financially was riding on this film. So they were probably sticking their fingers in at every available opportunity.
So I wouldn't be surprised if this is not their intended movie, or at least part of it is
the
not their
filmmakers,
intent-
they definitely would have had to compromise.
Considering that this film has been a pretty big success in the box office,
Yeah.
hopefully we'll get more, and hopefully they'll give
would watch the
the
second
directors
one.
more rope.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
I think like there are like there are strong bits like I thought the first half was kind of boring.
Yeah.
But I think there's a heist scene in the middle of the
Yeah,
movie
that's
with
fantastic.
a wagon that's
Yeah.
really well done. And then after that, I think it kind of picks up a bit. And there's like a bunch of stuff where they infiltrate a castle, and then there's
It feels
sort
like,
of a game, a tournament
I feel
sort
like
of thing.
the
And
first version of this movie was a heist film.
well, it's called Honor Among Thieves.
Yeah. And it kind of changes a little bit from a heist movie, but I feel like the original vision of this was probably closer to just like a heist.
But
Well,
I
it's
don't
funny,
see
right?
why they couldn't have done that.
yeah.
Hasbro's leaning into heists at the moment for their actual like books. There's like
Yeah.
a whole thing they're trying to get with like.
Yeah.
So I would have loved to see a version of this film that was Ocean's 11.
Yeah, that's what I thought it was going to
You
be.
know, how
Because-
cool would that be?
Because
I
it's
have a feeling that's probably what it was originally conceived to be. And then they were like,
But
but
then-
you have to hit these other...
I don't know,
So-
but then like the whole like there's not. I mean, there's a bit of it, towards the end, but the first half isn't really
Okay. So
heisty.
I have two issues with this film. The one issue is the way the plot's designed. So it's a Dungeons and Dragons movie. So it's not like you said. It takes place in the world. It's a serious game. There's no meta references outside of the narrative.
Yeah.
But the way, if you look at the way the plot's been designed, it mirrors like a Dungeons and Dragons campaign. So the problem I have is it's like we're watching the sequel to a campaign that's already happened. So the first campaign was the drawing of the characters. They all get together.
Yeah.
They have to get the
Well, I kind of like that
thingamajig.
because oftentimes, the origin story, they start with the origin story and it's really boring.
Well, the problem I have is that it's a Dungeons and Dragons movie, but we don't have all the central cast together until at least midway through the film.
Yeah.
So I'm like, they should all have been in prison together for whatever reason. Maybe they didn't even know each other, and it's like the quest of Edgin.
I think, yeah.
So that's my number one problem,
I
is
think-
that you can't have the group interaction, which is what Dungeons and Dragons is so key with.
I think they
Until we get midway through the film.
they did both. They had Ed and Holger know each other and are in prison together. And then they already had their crew with Simon.
Yeah.
And then they basically only have to hook up with what's the tiefling's
the
name?
druid.
Doric.
Yeah.
Yeah. So like basically they have the core group. It's just two of them are together. They have to pick up Simon a bit later, and then they have to rope Doric in later.
Yeah.
So, am I missing anyone?
No.
There's the
Only-
paladin, but he's like
He's the DM insert.
yeah.
Yeah. But that's the only issue I have, is that I would have them all together all at once. So it's like I said, that's a media issue to me. I understand it's a
I don't
fantasy
think
film.
it's maybe the big problem. But also, like I said, the origin thing of it, if they just all were together already, like a family. But then that's also the point of the movie.
I
is-
did appreciate being
them
able to
coming
clearly
together.
tell the different encounters as if it was in a book. So it's like the different the different set pieces, and the puzzles, and then the combat encounters. The other issue I have was, I feel like the classes themselves, the characters, the classes they represent, barbarian. It was Olga was barbarian, not a warrior, right?
I think she's barbarian. Yeah.
So like barbarian, druid, a sorcerer, and bard. We didn't get enough class representation, so we didn't get to see we saw a couple of abilities from each class, not really from Bard. We get to see him playing the lute a bit, and that's about it.
Yeah,
I would have
I
liked.
think,
I would really have liked to see Ed. What's it, Ed?
Ed, yeah.
Ed. I would have
Chris
really.
Pine's
I
character.
would have really liked to have seen him playing the lute in a combat scene, like inspiring.
Yeah, like
morale,
inspiring his allies.
kind of stuff.
They
In combat.
each character is a Dungeon Dragons class
Archetype kind of
Archetype.
person, yeah.
but I think they needed to push it a lot further.
Yeah, exactly.
Because yes, Chris Pine's character Ed is the bard and he has a lute or whatever.
Yeah, but he does no bardy things in terms of how.
He
bards play.
he plays a
He
song once
distracts,
to distract a
but-
guard or whatever.
But who cares?
But like they really needed to push like, oh, his charisma is
It's crazy high.
all the way at the top, but his intelligence or dexterity might be very low.
Yeah, exactly.
So they needed to have scenes like that
Um,
where he can convince a guard to give him the keys just
But
by
he
singing
can't
them a
run
song.
away. Yeah.
But then if he has to do like fighting, he needs Holger, who's the fighter.
Yeah.
Strength,
Now
yeah.
she's a barbarian and she fights and she's good at it, but they need to really
Yeah, we didn't get that the berserker
exactly.
rage.
They really need to ramp up the fact that she's a berserker.
We
that-
didn't get any cool abilities from her weapon wise. So I'm like, these are the things that are so important to Dungeons and Dragons. Like, it's classes are the driving force of
They
that
don't have.
world.
They don't have the. I mean, they have individual weapons, but none of them are really
Special. There's no magical
signature or
weapons.
special. Yeah,
You know, like
except the paladin has the magic sword. The
but
actually,
he
The
enchants.
paladin was the only one
paladin
where we
was the
actually
best-
had a lot of the D&D
You know what,
yeah,
kind of.
the
this
paladin was the
yeah.
best part of the first half of the
You know-
movie.
And
Yeah.
he was the most authentically D&D.
Yeah.
There was no like
Yeah.
laying on hands healing moment, apart from you see that quick scene where he heals a guy.
After the movie, we also I said to Callum, I'm like, we were talking about the tiefling character who's also a druid.
Yeah,
And she does. The only magic she does
it's
is
wild shape.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
she
and I
can
was like,
transform into animals.
What a waste of an opportunity
Yeah.
to highlight the druid class. You
I'm
know,
like,
'cause in a sense, this
Shouldn't
film is
she be able to talk to animals
Yeah,
or
or
you know use
create
herbs?
create potions, maybe
Yeah.
use vines to come up from the ground to
Yeah.
hold enemies. See, it's like I think about this film like an advertisement for Dungeons and Dragons for people who don't know about it, you know. So they should have been using this to highlight the different classes and their strengths and the way they can interact with each other.
From a filmmaking perspective, I understand, you don't want to make your characters too overpowered and you don't want
But it is
to
a fantasy
overwhelm.
world.
Yeah, but also it is Dungeons and Dragons. It's not just any other regular fantasy
You
property,
remember the original Avengers film? You get that wonderful scene where they're all fighting in unison.
They do that at the end of this movie.
Yeah, but like you need that, but with spells.
Yeah.
That's pretty much what we're missing. Like, okay, the paladin has the shiny sword, but what about all the other cool paladin stuff? Like the god stuff and all that.
I guess that's the
interesting
thing
stuff.
is for a layman audience who's not familiar with the fact that each character has a spell slot and each character has a weapon two weapon slots or whatever. It could be overwhelming if everyone in the party can do magic and everyone can do.
I mean, the whole thing is it's a magical world. Some people can wield it, but it affects everybody in a certain way, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, there weren't enough. Yeah. I mean, it was still fun. Like, I just think that they didn't play enough with the brand, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Like they made it both high fantasy and colorful and vibrant, but also really generic.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. So it was like they played as safe as they could while still having that brand identity. Where I think that they should have made it not gamey, but like I said, like there should have been
just
more
push
magic,
it a bit further.
more magical people in the world. It should magic shouldn't be. It's in Faerun, the default Dungeons and Dragons world. So like there should be wizards everywhere, more or less. You know what I mean?
They need to.
There should be druids everywhere. It should be a thing. There's there's a gargoyle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? They didn't really do that. Like Strahd. Oh, that's Forgotten Realms. I'm sorry, but Strahd, the Barons. Can you imagine if Strahd, the big D&D villain, rocked up to the games?
Well, I mean, they do have some Easter eggs here and there, but assumedly sequels will do stuff like that as well. But the thing with Dungeons and Dragons is if you're playing it, it's basically you just create your own fantasy world, but you use the rule set and some of the races and classes and weapons that the book tells you to. But really, you're making it up all as you go along. And the movie is set, in the world, and so it can utilize all the stuff, the lore from the books and the weapons and the creatures and monsters and whatever. And it does that, but I guess the filmmaking of it and the writing of it, it feels very much just like a kind of mid MCU kind of movie.
Exactly.
I will say Hugh Grant's character was very funny. I like
Hugh Grant's pretty good.
He's
a good
English.
villain.
He's a good cheesy English kind of
cheeky
scoundrel villain.
Yeah.
Did we talk about the tiefling problem?
No, that's another problem. Yeah.
So there's a race in the Dungeons and Dragons game called tieflings, which are half demonic or half demonic characters, and they can be any skin color in the world. And if all the color
usually
palette,
like a light reddish kind of
or a
purplish.
darker brown, grey kind of greeny kind of look as well.
But they can be different colors.
Yeah, like any color basically you can think of. And they just kept it just a default white skin tone.
One of the problems with when we saw the trailer was the core party. They're all just like humans.
Yeah, exactly.
And one of the
dwarves.
There was like one at the end and one in the background, but no main characters.
No gnomes.
But one of the things about D&D is like you pick your class, you pick your race, and it's just like, that's part of the fun of it.
Yeah, and
I understand maybe they didn't want to go full Lord of the Rings with an elf and a dwarf and a.
But it's also kind of the D&D
But
experience.
D&D is basically just based on Lord of the Rings, if we're honest. Like, it's basically they just took that and said, we're making
the meme, why are you booing us? We're right.
Yeah.
In anticipation to the listeners.
Yeah. But like, I think the tiefling, like, she has like the little horns, but otherwise she's just
even the
normal
horns. It's like, why couldn't you get weirder with it?
the tiny little...
and they just explain it away that she's half human. I'm like, that's just so lazy.
And
okay. Same with Simon. Simon is like half elf, so he's got slightly pointed ears.
That's it.
And there's like there's elves in the movie, but like they're just in the background. There's no elf characters. There's no sense of an elf race.
Yeah.
And even like we said with the bard and the barbarian, it's like they're human, but they didn't really push their class
Yeah.
enough. I think, yeah, they should have just, like, we've got like Gamora, Drax,
Yeah, that's
Groot,
exactly
Rocket. Like, I know this movie didn't have maybe as big a budget as Guardians, but it's still, I think they could have gotten away with just colouring her in the tiefling, or
Make her red and then job's done.
make Simon a full elf and just make his ears more pointy, because a lot of fantasy, I think we talk about like how influential Lord of the Rings is, both the book and the movie, and I think a lot of other fantasy properties are a bit afraid to
get weird with it.
Get weird and go in a bit of a different direction. Now, I think elves are a good example of that, where you never see live action elves with really long pointy ears.
No, you
elves
don't.
Are also they're also the safe one, because it's like you just
they're just humans with pointy ears. Yeah, but the whole, I think the thing is, like, and the thing that the Lord of the Rings movies do so well is that even though they're just humans with slightly pointed ears, you get a sense of their culture and their otherworldliness. Yeah. Whereas something like the Witcher show did a really bad job of portraying the elves as another race. Yeah. Like, it was just like, oh, these are just people with pointy ears. And you didn't get a sense of, like, this is another race, an ancient kind of... Because the world building and the writing is poor.
Yeah, definitely.
But anyway, yeah, there are some really cool practical creatures. There's a Birdman. There's
Jonathan. His name
Jonathan, yeah, something like that. Yeah,
that's like it's like I can imagine the DM sitting at the table and they're like, "Oh, what's this guy's name?" Oh, well, Jonathan.
Yeah, Callum pointed out Simon the Sorcerer. Like, it's a very
on the nose.
Yeah. But there's a burger. There's a what is the dragon? Yeah, there's a Tabaxi, the Tabaxi cat lady and her little child, which is cool, like practical thing. What are the dragon people called?
Oh, Drakthir?
No.
That's game or something.
Oh gosh, I'm blanking.
Drakthir is World of Warcraft.
Let's see. They are draconic. Dragonborn.
Oh, okay. Dragonborn. Yeah. Duh. Yeah, there was like one or two of them that were cool, like an actual practical kind of animatronic head and a lot of, like, prosthetics. There was an orc guy at the beginning. He was really cool.
Yeah.
And so they're around.
Orcs did get enough representation.
Yeah, there's like film. One. Yeah. So they're around, and there's a dwarf guy at the end. Like, they're around, and you see them, and it's cool. But yeah, it's just
wasn't enough.
I would, and especially the main party, I would have liked to.
Yeah.
I think it's also, like, it's a budget thing. Is like, if you make a character too small, and if he's around for the whole movie, then you have to do a whole Lord of the Rings thing with. And the small characters in this movie look awful. Like, it's really badly.
Yeah.
Composited into.
His name, what was it? Oh,
Bradley
Cooper.
Bradley Cooper
really
has a cameo. Yeah, that was bad. That looked bad. But there was also the counselor lady who was on their parole board.
She looked okay.
She looked fine.
Yeah.
She was like a little...
I guess the problem is, if you're not Peter Jackson, you might be worried. If you're trying to film small
I think it's
people.
probably like a budget thing as well. But I just... It's a shame... Like, we talk about it a lot. It's a shame when they do have a lot of cool practical elements that we love. And then there's like a lot of bad CGI as well. And there's a lot of good CGI, quote unquote good CGI.
Yeah.
But some of it was pretty rough.
Yeah.
And I just, Callum and I were talking about it, like, if they just scaled it back a bit, it would have been fine. Like, you don't need to have...
Should have been that heist movie, like set in one location, you get a couple different set pieces.
Just set it in the city.
Every character gets
to infiltrate the castle.
Every character gets to highlight their class.
They start in a tavern, like...
They should have killed rats in an inn's basement. That's how it should have started.
Yeah, I was surprised it didn't just start in the tavern and then all like meeting each other and going like,
what's the job?
Yeah. Yeah.
I would have liked that.
Yeah.
I mean,
they could have gone super
all
cliche.
All the D&D nerds would have just been like, it has to start in a tavern, man. Yes.
Yeah. Grown.
But like I said, keep in mind, we started it in it's like the second campaign, not the first. So the first one could have started in a tavern.
Yeah. That's how they met.
We're going to get a prequel movie.
Oh no, we've already
No,
seen
they
it.
won't.
I don't want that.
They won't do that.
Yeah.
They'll probably do a sequel. It's doing well, I think.
I hope they do.
I would watch a second
yeah.
one. Like, it was a fun movie.
Just don't send
I
it
think
to
the
Netflix where they'll kill it.
Yeah. God damn. But yeah, like, I think the first half was a bit slow, but like I started enjoying it after that kind of heist in the middle, and
Yeah.
and there are good elements of it that I really like. But
I saw something on the net that I thought was interesting, was that it was refreshing to see the primary characters, male and female, having a platonic relationship, which was the driving force of the film.
Yeah.
Instead of having like a romantic thing,
Yeah.
especially with a bard, because as you
Although-
know, bards and rogues like to romance
I know
every NPC in the game.
Yeah,
Whereas this one was a more restrained platonic relationship.
I guess it also helps that the main character had a wife and kid.
Yeah.
So it's just like they already start without. It's not like a love story of how
Yeah.
they met.
And Olga already had her baggage as well.
Yeah, but like I think one thing. I mean, you know,
They're
there
gonna
are.
set that up for the sequel.
I hope that would be awful.
I think they'll keep him
They
platonic.
they
hope
wouldn't do.
so.
I don't think they would make that
But
mistake.
do you trust the studio not to be like, make it happen?
I think it'll be fine.
Yeah, no, I think they can get away with not doing that, even if the studios pushes for it. But you know, there's like 4-ish main characters. The movie's 2 hours 10-ish minutes, so I understand you can't do everything in the world, but I do feel that a lot of the relationships feel a bit rushed. Simon and Doric have a previous romantic relationship that I feel like was completely
Out of left field.
not earned and not well represented, and there was no chemistry between them. And then at the very end, they're like, hey, maybe we should give it another shot. And she showed no interest at all.
And she's just like,
And
yeah, okay.
She does this cliche thing of, I don't like humans, but I mean, she's half human, she looks human, and they could have got away with that more if she looked like an actual tiefling.
Yeah.
They just needed to make her look like Gamora. It would have been fine.
Yeah, exactly.
And the thing with Ed and Holga and, Ed's daughter and like their platonic kind of co-parenting thing, that was nice. But I feel like they could have pushed that more. And one of my big problems with the movie as well is Holga has this whole past with her husband left her and she was kicked out of her tribe. And I would have liked to see her tribe. And maybe that's part of the campaign is they have to go back to her tribe and ask for help, but she's been exiled, so maybe she has to fight someone to prove that she, so that they will help, or something like that.
Yeah.
But what they do end up doing is when she goes back to, I won't spoil it, but she goes back to meet someone previously, and it's kind of boring scene, and I didn't feel it. It wasn't well done for me anyway.
Yeah, it wasn't.
But yeah, it was an okay movie.
It was like done for comedic effect when it was a driving part of her character.
That's the other thing, yeah. A lot of it's comedic, and then when they're trying to be sincere about it, it just visually it didn't look very good, and
it just looked weird, not in like the right kind of weird.
Yeah.
It just didn't sit right.
Yeah, and at the end when it's like all sappy, I was just like, I didn't feel that emotionally invested in any of the characters' journey, or even Simon, like he's trying to become confident in himself as a sorcerer, and I was just kind of like, this is all stuff I've seen before, and I wasn't feeling it. Yeah, but it was just perfectly okay, kind of fun fantasy. If you've seen any Marvel movie, it
is nice to see a proper honest to God fantasy film, because we don't really get they're not that common.
A sort of big mainstream kind of
yeah.
It was alright.
It's not bad. Go see it if you want a fun time.
Not a natural 20, but
it doesn't roll a natural 20.
It hits.
It rolls about a 12.
Yeah.
It hits.
About a 12 or 13. All right, we'll be right back after this short break. Welcome back. Now we're going to talk about something that really keeps us up at night. AI.
Yeah.
Artificial intelligence.
Artificial intelligence. Now, ChatGPT and OpenAI is the big thing right now. In the last few months, we've basically rocketed ahead in AI capability further than the last 20 years.
That's what interests me the most, is just in the last year, it's gotten
exponential growth.
Yeah, it's gotten so good. Whereas before...
I remember, the other year we were playing with, was it DALL-E or like just the
Yeah,
random
last
little
year,
image.
yeah.
Last
Yeah,
year
the
we were
image
playing with the
generator.
image prompt.
Yeah.
And then we had a laugh, we got our
We-
Michael Myers courtroom sketches.
Yeah,
and that was
yeah, yeah,
hilarious.
We were having some giggles, and it was
Yeah.
just a fun
It's
little
like
weird
you
time.
just type in like Master Chief from Halo riding a T-Rex, and it would come up with this kind of blobby, vague T-Rex with a
Yeah.
kind of green soldier on the top. They're like, oh yeah, that kind of looks like what I wanted. But now they've gotten so good.
So we should say back in the day, AI were just like these little chatbots you could have conversations with, and it was
Yeah.
very limited, very very primitive.
Well, there's
but these days, it'll do
And
anything you want.
that's the
son.
thing. It's gone from that primitive stage to where we are now so quickly.
Yeah.
I
And
would just
that's the technology interests me.
but it's also going to ruin lots of industries.
It's
lots of-
scary, but also I'm like, it's just incredible to see. Like,
It's the drama that surrounds AI is fascinating to watch unfold because
yeah,
this is gonna I'm gonna say a sentence and then I'm gonna have to deconstruct it for a second. So it democratizes the entirety of programming and art. Now,
well, that's what. Yeah,
I want to say programming and art have been democratized for a long time before AI. The tools to learn and use programming and art have been freely available for a long time. The difference is, as somebody with no practical knowledge in either, I can just get an AI to make me artwork using Midjourney, and it'll look fantastic. The new ChatGPT version, which we'll be diving into in a minute, ChatGPT 4, can straight up make you an app on the fly.
yeah. Like it used to be able to help with coding. Now you can just tell it what to code, and it does it.
Yeah, and then you can put that into a website and it generates it all for you on the fly.
Yeah.
So like you could something that might take a programmer 6 hours can be done in like 20 minutes. And so it's like
So
when I say it's democratized, it's like if you want to learn how to program, it can teach you step by step, debug your program as you're doing it, and elaborate like a professor would at every stage you're doing it.
I was talking to a friend about this because I'm interested in the technology and what it's doing, and he's a graphic designer, and I said to him, I said, I want your opinion because you're going to be the one affected, more than us, and because there's all this controversy around these AI image generators, where it's basically when you put in a prompt. It scours the internet for images, and it kind of compiles them and morphs them all.
So that depends on the AI. So the big ones like Midjourney and DALL-E, they have what's called training sets. So what happens is companies will pay another company or artists themselves, depending on who's running the AI, to provide a training set. So like they might say to you, let's just say you're a photographer or you're an artist, they'll say, we're going to give you some money, or they'll contact the company which owns the rights to sublet your images or whatever. And they'll pay for that and then stick it all in a database, which they then feed to the AI. So then if you ask it to draw pictures of onions, it'll look at its data set for pictures of onions, and then it'll make a composite of all of your onions using the parameters you feed it. So it doesn't scour the internet per se.
In that case, you're feeding it stuff you've paid for, which is not the problem.
Yeah.
The problem is people, Googling images that they want, like the style of, like Corridor Digital is a like YouTube kind of, they do like filmmaking and visual effects stuff. They've been around for ages, since like early YouTube. And they do some really cool stuff. And recently they did an AI generated anime kind of thing where
That was weird.
Yeah, I know the one you're talking about.
And like, I thought it was pretty cool because, it's not, these guys are really talented in the first place. They make all this stuff without AI.
Yeah.
So we know they're talented artists and filmmakers and animators and so on. They decided they like filmed live action templates, and then they used AI to basically make it look like an anime.
Yeah.
And then they trained it and fiddled with it until it looked the way they wanted to look at. And they used images from Vampire Hunter D, the anime, to make it look a certain anime style. And it was a good video, and it was fun, and it was an interesting kind of thing. And it was
Yeah.
interesting for me because I'm like Callum was saying with democratization of like filmmaking and art and animation, is like you could make something like, whereas Into the Spider-Verse cost however hundreds of millions of dollars and took however many years to make. Soon, one person in their bedroom will be able to make something like Into the Spider-Verse all on their own in like a week. That interests me.
Yeah.
It's a dangerous thing of like, well, you had the tools to learn how to do these.
We're
but
going to
now,
get lazy and complacent.
Exactly. Now you don't even need to. You can just get the AI to do it. Whereas the Corridor Digital guys actually put a lot into work and training, and they took a lot of...
The people making this AI system, they envision a Star Trek-like utopian world.
Well, that's what I'm getting to.
We're not that
No, we're very far away from that. So that's what I'm getting to is... In the case of Corridor Digital, they used art from the Vampire Hunter D movie, which they didn't pay for. They didn't have the rights to. And it's just a fun video, short video online, whatever. But that's kind of the problem is it's not the fact that the AI is making people lazy and just you can fart out an image or an animation. It's more that it's taking art that it doesn't have permission.
Yeah, not in all circumstances. I think the problem is
if they're actually paying people to provide a template for the AI to learn off of, that's different.
All right. So the issue is, depending on the company and the AI you're using, some of the companies aren't exactly the most ethical companies on the internet.
Yeah.
So Midjourney, for example, the biggest AI generated AI art generator in the world at the moment, at least. Has actually, I believe they were in legal trouble because they were using images in their data set which they did not legally acquire. So it's one of those issues where, on one hand, it's like, yes, it provides great artwork, but it seems to be doing that. And I won't say seems to be because I'm not sure about the legal specifics of it all, since it might be an ongoing court case. But it seems that they didn't pay all of the artists who in their training set. So it's one of those things where just because you can generate art doesn't mean that the art that's been generated can be legally used regardless of what Midjourney say. So the idea is if you use Midjourney to create an artwork, you then, if you've paid for Midjourney or you're using the free credit or whatever, you have the rights to use that commercially. Because the idea is Midjourney would have paid the artists for the training set, which is the bedrock for any images it's generating.
Yeah.
That's not the case. The problem is that some of the artwork, and by some I mean potentially a lot of the artwork that it's using, was more or less illegally just uploaded into the training set.
Yeah.
And so now you have instances where it's very obvious that it's referencing artworks that the artists did not sell legally to Midjourney.
Because you can type in a prompt, make Family Guy, but in the style of Dali, exactly. And it's just like it's not paying for Family Guy or
That's
Dali.
right, because Midjourney does not use the internet; it only uses what's in the training set. So a difference, for example, is ChatGPT 4 is that there are plugins which allow it to do actually scale the net.
Yeah,
but that's a chatbot. That's
chatbots,
that's a bit different. It doesn't.
But that also because people are using, kids are using it to write school essays and university.
It's hilarious.
We were in high school.
Yeah, so I don't blame it. You hustle.
We'll get to that in a second because that's actually hilarious. What it does.
But it's like it's not an AI in like it's a robot going to take over the world.
No.
It's basically like a really complex version of
Omega Bot.
Or of predictive text. When you're texting and it says, "What's the next?" It's like
essentially, we've just come to the point where it's because people kind of misunderstand how the AI works. It's trained to give you a certain response, but all it's doing is reacting to your prompt.
Yeah,
it's not.
But also, it's also like because the first time I was playing around with the ChatGPT, I said, write an intro for Tuesday Review. And it basically said exactly what our intro is.
It can't create.
Yeah. But I'm like, the only way it could do that is because it went to our website, found our description, and use that in our in the generated text. So that's the thing, is it's like
It didn't do that. It can't. ChatGPT can't access the internet without the API plugins. So it would have just. It knows what a
Are you
podcast
sure?
is. It knows what a podcast is.
'Cause
And
I
it knows
know-
what a movie review is, and it knows who Kevin Costner is. So it has access to knowledge and the internet from before 2021. So it's possible if our website or our Twitter feed or whatever was uploaded to something like archive.org, it might have been able to access a snapshot of that. But in terms of up-to-date websites, unless you have the plugins...
So can't do it live.
No, not unless you've paid for access to the API.
Okay.
And then you have a certain plugin which does allow it to actually use the internet.
Yeah.
But that's recent. That's like ChatGPT 4, and you have to have like the access to the premium features.
Yeah.
But it has limited access to websites from before 2021,
Okay.
which is a part of the problem, is that sometimes it has information. But the thing I said was hilarious was that what it does if you ask it to write an essay, is it lies. So it'll give you, let's just say, it'll say, I want an essay on foot care or like something to do with the skeleton or whatever. It'll tell you all this really legit sounding stuff. It's all fake. And then it'll put in
It doesn't fact check.
Yeah, no, it makes it up. And then it'll put in like a footnote with a reference to like some scholarly work. Again, all fake. So it's like you get these experts reading these essays that it's written, and it's all bullcrap, which is why it's hilarious. So you get all these kids being like, I'm so smart using ChatGPT.
I mean, if it's a basic essay, you can probably
No,
do
but like if you get to uni level...
there are like, because like we said, you can train it.
Yeah, you can.
And there are different versions and whatever. So like,
if you're a real smarty pants, you could feed it all the work you're getting submitted, like for school.
And now like schools and unis are using like anti-AI detectors and stuff, which, and I've heard are not particularly that good, because then people who haven't used AI are getting flagged because the AI, the anti-AI thing is scanning their previous work. And saying, oh, this sounds like previous work. It's like, yeah, duh, because I wrote that essay, idiot. Yeah. So it's like, it's just this whole mess.
Yeah.
But anyway, like the point is, the democratization of filmmaking and art and whatever. They said that when YouTube came out. They said that when you could film stuff on your phone. But what happened was, yes, YouTube's a big thing, and kids can make a whole movie on their own and whatever. But what really happened was that Hollywood just doubled down on shutting these people out.
Yeah.
Or using those tools for their own capitalistic greed. And this is where the big problem lies.
On a similar related note, I got a message from Alan, who is listening at home.
Okay.
And I quote, "Stop looking at the chat and talk more about AI pornos."
Jesus.
See, this is exactly why I told the
I
chat
know.
GPT that Alan makes inappropriate jokes.
He makes a joke, but he raises a valid point, not just in, we'll say, adult films, but in...
Deepfake's a whole nother
deepfakes,
thing,
yeah.
yeah.
Oh my God.
That's
just
the
in
whole-
general, deepfakes,
Yeah.
right? Obviously, it's been used for less than savory things. But Trey Parker and Matt Stone famously, at one point, had a Donald Trump deepfake TV series in the works. It's called Sassy Justice.
Oh, really?
There's an episode on YouTube.
It's hilarious.
Half an hour special.
Oh.
Look it up. It's amazing.
It's funny.
probably the
I've
best
never heard of
deepfake
it.
I've ever seen. Sassy Justice.
Have
Where,
you seen that Tom Cruise guy? He was making the
Yes.
rounds a while ago.
But the Sassy Justice one is Donald Trump as an investigative journalist.
Okay.
And it's very funny. And it's written, like, obviously all the dialogue is written by Trey Parker and Matt Stone, but they use a deep fake for Donald Trump's face and his voice. And it's spot on. Obviously, it's harder to get out on the TV because Donald Trump hasn't signed up on this. There's those issues of you're impersonating another person.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Well, that's a whole other
that's a
issue
whole
where
other
it'll
issue.
get to a point where...
And
Well, actually, on top of that, there was the fake AI-generated image of Trump getting arrested that everyone... It looked so real.
Yeah.
And there was that image of the Pope wearing the puffer jacket. And I thought it was just real. I'm like, oh, he was cold. He's
You know
wearing a
how I
puffer
knew it
jacket.
wasn't real? Because
Yeah.
the Pope was ripped. You could see he was like muscly underneath. Like
No,
he had
see,
that kind
there's
of-
one. There's one where he's just kind of walking on the side, and
Yeah.
it looked perfectly real. That's the one I saw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Then there's other ones where he's like wearing sneakers, and it's like, oh, those are
Yeah.
obviously fake. But yeah, it'll be interesting in the near future where it's like you just people already now don't believe things are real.
That's what I was gonna
just
say.
Have
with
you seen the
Photoshop.
one of Will Smith eating spaghetti?
That's
Yeah, that's
hilarious.
scary as hell.
But it raises while having a goof in Facebook
Yeah.
to me raises a good point as well.
And it's also-
it's going to make us harder. We would know obviously if it's not real, it's probably not real, right?
Yeah.
But there's a certain part of the population
They
who
believe
would-
everything they
Yeah.
see on the
Believe
internet
everything they
already.
We already live in the post-truth Trump
Yeah,
kind
so
of alternative facts.
That's like there's going to be people like Putin, like Donald Trump,
Hmm.
like potential dictators who might spin up the old
There's
face
yeah.
or ChatGPT.
There's an episode-
in a way to get power.
There's an episode of The Orville where the Krill generate like a fake like terrorist attack, and they broadcast it on the news like it's this real thing, and it never happened. And yeah, that stuff's scary because soon you could just type
That'll
that
happen,
into to an AI generator and say, Joe Biden kills a puppy, and it
So-
it does it.
One thing I saw, I just remembered, so I'm sorry for this a little change in tone. I saw there's an AI coming out soon that people can illegally, I'm assuming illegally, fed an AI voice tracks from Jay-Z songs, and then they just typed in their own lyrics, and it makes a beat, and then bam, you have brand new Jay-Z material.
Yeah, I've heard.
So it's like even music now, it's like you can just like upload someone's songs
voices.
or whatever, and then bam, you have your own brand new artist.
Yeah.
So it's like we were talking a while ago now, off air, about the jobs that are going to be lost to AI. Like it's going to honestly.
Well, that's kind of what I was trying to get at.
the economic catastrophe that's going to
Yeah.
come from this is going to be either nothing at all because everyone's going to be like it's just silly, ignore it, or it's going to be immensely disruptive.
Keep in mind, one,
to creative industry.
we're still in the infancy of this,
yeah.
but
but the fact that it's grown,
so
rapidly,
much in such a short amount of time,
that's the worrying part.
in a few years, it'll be completely different. But yeah, what I was trying to get to was, I find it really, I stopped wanting to be a filmmaker. It was just too much. It was too hard for me. It was too
Now
much.
I could
burden.
just generate a film
Yeah.
myself.
It's just like now, it's like, could I make a movie on my own in my bedroom? And it's like, is that cheating? Is that lazy?
Yes.
And it's like, yes. And it's just like, I could have spent the time learning to do certain things,
Yeah.
learning animation, whatever. And I think that's part of the problem. But the bigger part of the problem is artists and other, writers and stuff not getting paid for the work that is being used when these things are generating content. But also, like I was just saying, is the democratization is just like, yes, it might make it easy for, young filmmakers to make a movie or make an animation or whatever. But like as always, I think companies will just try to capitalize on this.
Look, like him or not,
And
Elon Musk has come very vocally out against OpenAI as a company. And he's saying it shouldn't be open, it should be closed. You shouldn't be giving everyone and their dog and every company in existence access to unfettered AI of every kind of sort.
Especially
because
since
it'll
you
just lead to
Yeah.
unimaginable...
yeah, but I also don't trust
his
a
motives,
small,
his motives might be a little...
what's the alternative? A small group of rich people having access to it, or just the government? That's even scarier. I'd rather everyone have it.
I mean, yeah, but it causes a different set of problems.
Yeah, but that's like what I'm getting at is like, yeah, what'll end up happening is what always happens is when a technological advancement comes along, it doesn't make people's lives better.
Nah.
The corporations and the government just use it to make them more money and to us to keep slaving away like we always do. When they created farming tools, did they stop slavery? No. The slaves just started using farming tools.
The yields
it.
just got
The
bigger.
yield got
Yeah.
bigger. The
Yeah.
slave owners got richer. When they started introducing self-serve checkouts at the supermarket,
It's the D&D issue.
did our lives get better? No,
It's
the
the
company's
D&D
got
issue,
more
right?
and more generated more and more money, and people lost jobs.
You know, under the old idea for the D&D license, it's like we could use AI to make our own campaigns. Belongs to Hasbro.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But it's like one of the issues I think people are... Everyone's using AI to make their own artwork at the moment and stuff like that. And I'm like, what
It's
people
funny
are,
when it's like, because we did it as a joke. Like, it's
Yeah.
fun, and you know, there are all these.
Yeah, but we're not selling it.
Exactly, that's the thing.
Well, what I was gonna
Is
say
there are
is-
all these. You know, it's fun to like. What if
Play with it,
Futurama
yeah.
was a fantasy movie? It's like, oh, cool.
But it's also... It produces soulless art. It
Yeah.
produces soulless work.
Also, yeah, it's kind of like separating the art and the artist. It's just like, well, if you separate the art, it looks really good.
Yeah, but there's no
But
intention
there's no,
behind it.
yeah, there's no soul, there's no intention, there's no history behind it. And there's a question of like, well, do you need that? Like, do you need to know J.R. Tolkien's background to enjoy reading Lord of the Rings? Not necessarily.
Yeah, but it's like a
But that's
machine...
kind of what makes it have a soul.
Yeah,
Not that
because
I believe in a
machine-
soul, but you know what I mean.
Yeah, there's definitely an artistic soul because it comes from a person. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like the essence of a thing.
Yeah.
A machine can't do that.
No.
ChatGPT, as talented as it is, will never be able to produce a truly original work. Never.
Mm.
And you know, I don't. So it's interesting, right? I don't believe in artificial general intelligence because, on one hand, if
The AI we're talking about now isn't the AI you see in movies.
no,
This is
That's
just
right.
a...
And
this is
everyone's
just a prompt-
scaremongers.
It's like a prompt reply
Yeah,
machine.
yeah.
essentially.
everyone's scaremongers about it. You know, Elon's like, oh, it's going to destroy humanity. It might not because it's
Eventually, maybe,
actually
but-
alive,
yeah.
but just because if let's just say a rogue hacker from a dictator state, for example,
Yeah, far
gets-
more the information, boys.
yeah, no, gets access to some backdoor exploit in some computer and manages to use AI to shut down all the electrical grids in the world or set off nukes somewhere. And that's the problem. It's not the AI is alive itself.
See, this is an interesting conversation because me and Callum have a slight disagreement on this. I don't think it's possible to have an actual artificial intelligence, like an actual intelligence, with a consciousness and everything else that entails, without organic components. I don't see it happening. The way we code, the way we program, it's very much just if, then, and statements.
Yeah, so-
we can't conceive
I
of
think,
how
again,
we make that.
This is a situation where there's a misunderstanding about what I mean. So the way I look at it is there's two options, right? Consciousness is either an organic product of the body or it's not. If it's an organic product of the body, we can simulate that because we can simulate the functions of every part of the body. It's just a layer of abstraction, obfuscation, I should say, or whatever the right word is. So it's like if you simulate the function of the liver, for example, you can set up a model that does that. Now, the simulation to simulate consciousness, we might not have the capacity in the computing power to do that for 10,000 years. But if it's a product of the body, eventually we'll reach a state technologically where it can be simulated. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying... that's basically what I mean. So the brain itself is a computer. We're just physical computers.
Yeah, we're machines.
Yeah. So I'm not saying it's not going to
Organic
happen
machines.
tomorrow, right? It might take 100,000 years of technological progress before we can actually figure out how consciousness works organically and then find a way to simulate that so we have an approximation of it. Or that's option one. Option two is that it's not a product of the body and it comes from elsewhere. Then we can't simulate it. That's all I mean. I'm saying, like I said, like, keep in mind, when I say that we can simulate it, I'm not saying now. I'm saying the human
no, I
race
think
must be
that-
completely
I think
different.
Nathan's just saying the ones and
the
zeros.
The way we program now doesn't exist for that capacity.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and
but
also
I'm not saying, like, I know that what Callum's saying is different. 100,000 years is a long time, obviously, but there are people freaking out about it now.
Yeah, no.
yeah.
There's people. There was a Google engineer who recently was
no,
like,
we're not
"It's real."
Yeah, we're not
It's
at- we're not at-
real."
we're not at-
Obviously, it's not, buddy.
we're
calm
not
down.
at Skynet. We're not at
Yeah,
Skynet yet.
Yeah.
But there are people who think that we are, but
Yeah.
we're not.
No.
Yeah.
Like,
But like we said, it is evolving quickly. But yeah, like as I was saying, it's you know, yeah, because everyone's freaking out about it, and you know, oh, people are going to lose jobs and whatever. And
They will.
and they will. But also, like, I feel like people are losing jobs now.
Yeah.
Just because corporations don't want to pay
Oh
people.
man,
Hot-
every year
and-
we see like 30% reducers in a company that's made like $1 billion
Yeah,
trillion
the profits
dollars.
keep going up, but the you know, it's the same old story. And this is where the problem for me lies.
Also, I'm sorry, James, but there's gonna come a point where like half of people's jobs, not necessarily your job, right? Is it really necessary?
No, my job's not necessary. It can be fully automated, but that is my point. We're at a point now. Cost of living is so high. We can't. People our age can't even afford a house. Like the world is on fire. Like climate change is at its peak breaking point, and it's not sustainable anymore.
No.
And so you've got the technological advances to automate almost everything.
Yeah, and you would hope that would lead to better outcomes for people.
Exactly. We need to be using that to help people, to feed people, to house people.
Yeah, AI should be there should be thousands of computers using the best version of AI for medical advancements.
Exactly, but it won't be. It'll be
for Nestle to steal more
Exactly.
water at prime locations.
Yeah. Now, because my thing has always been like in Star Trek, you can go into the holodeck and say, create me a waterfall. And it creates this waterfall and this whole jungle, and it looks real. And you can walk around and it feels real, and you can smell the plants and feel the humidity and whatever.
Only way we will see a vibrant planet in the future.
Well, yeah, I don't think we're going to last much longer than 10 years. But anyway. And I mean, no one has a problem with that because the AI is generating. But it's like Star Trek also takes place in a future where everything's taken care of. There's no money.
Yeah.
There's no one's hungry. You can make food, like literally push a button and it makes you food. Like there's no greed. There's no capitalistic gain to be made by someone creating an entire movie by saying, hey, holodeck, hey, computer, make me a movie.
I guess this...
And that's the problem, is it's not necessarily that this AI is so technologically advanced. It's just like, it's stealing people's work. It's not paying for it. It's not giving them credit. And it's going to be used for capitalistic gain.
I guess that's, at the end, that's the root of the problem, isn't it? It's people are using it to get ahead by stealing other people's work because the desperation is there, because everything is really hard right now. Everything's super expensive. Everyone's desperate just to stay above the breadline.
Yeah.
And like AI's going to just make it worse, I assume.
And if these companies are making record profits and, you know, cutting jobs and automating systems, that money needs to go back into helping the people.
Yeah.
So they need a universal basic income.
Yeah.
Because eventually, everything is going to be AI generated and automated.
When all the office jobs, in quotes, you know, very broad here, when they're automated and there's more unemployed people than there are employed people, what's going to happen?
Exactly. It's not sustainable. And
the only jobs that'll be left are service jobs.
Yeah,
and eventually, even the physical robots
they'll put the
will
AI
take
chips in
over
the robots.
Yeah, exactly. So this is what we should be heading towards: is the Star Trek style future where everything's automated, everything's done for you, but that's because everyone's taken care of. Yeah, there's no. It's not. Because when you say this to people, they freak out and they say, "Oh, what about jobs?" I'm like, no, that's the point. Is we don't have to work anymore. The companies making record profits have to pay taxes back in and help people to live. Yeah. Yeah. Because if you're firing everyone and getting robots to do the job, that's fine. But you got to pay those people.
They need to eat too.
Yeah. And it's not sustainable because this is just going to keep happening. And we know, especially right-wing governments, they're not going to do anything. No. They want homeless people. They want unemployed people.
Well, look, all I'm saying is, luckily in Australia, the mainland is all red.
Yeah.
And apparently there was a by-election in Victoria somewhere, and the Liberal Party lost an unlosable election in Victoria.
Yeah.
God willing.
Dutton lost too. His seat, or wherever he was.
I mean, it's not all bad.
Yeah. So see that yeah.
Just don't like the Liberal Party
because
please.
Because I'm a glass half empty kind of guy. Like I'm a negative person. So when I see this, all I can think of is in a few years' time people will get sick of it, and because the right wing media will just infest people's minds, and they'll just go back to voting for the Liberal Party, and we'll just go back to all the awful things.
There's a certain
but
element,
I'm hoping we're slowly moving towards a better future.
hopefully. I mean, there's a certain element of the whole kind of, I mean, off topic now, but the whole kind of political thought where it's like, you can't really be a conservative if you don't have anything. So it's like, over time, with the way things are heading now, there's going to be less conservatives because they just don't have anything. What are you trying to conserve? You don't have a home.
But that's the thing, is at the moment, they do have everything.
Yeah.
And we have nothing, and that's the big problem.
But we're starting to see the slide a little bit. Hopefully.
Are we, though?
I hope so.
I mean, in terms of the voting, yes,
Yeah.
but in terms of the actual holding of the wealth, no. The distribution of the wealth.
That's the same.
Yeah. Hashtag eat the rich.
Yeah.
But it's a really interesting time.
It's going to be an interesting couple of years. See where this goes.
Personally, because, there was a whole AI Seinfeld thing where,
I never got to see that. I wish I did.
They're on YouTube. You can watch
Clips
them.
on YouTube, it's hilarious.
So,
sometimes hilarious.
Yeah, but it's basically like... it was called Nothing Forever, and basically whoever made it was like just generating fake Seinfeld scripts.
See, that's what AI should be used for.
Yeah, but instead of Seinfeld, he's called something called Larry Feinberg or something, and it's like they different names, and so it's like not exactly Seinfeld, but basically is. And then it's like these janky AI generated animations, and it's all in this apartment, and it's. Because the AI doesn't understand humor or storytelling, it's just kind of churning out these generic jokes and storylines that don't make any sense. And that's part of the fun, is watching this computer trying to make jokes and trying to make storylines. And this kind of janky, anti-comedy that comes from it is what I really latch onto, because I think it's really funny. Because it's the computer saying something that it thinks is a joke, but is not a joke at all, and that's hilarious. Like, it's so not funny that it becomes funny again.
Are there laugh tracks in it?
Yeah, they add that. I don't think the AI generates that. But like, that's interesting. Is like the guy who created it was just like, instead of 25 episodes a season of Seinfeld for 9 seasons, he's like, there's just a new episode every day forever. And that's scary but also interesting to me. You can just create entire series of movies and shows that just go forever, and you never have to
I think if you can program
it's fascinating.
If you can program in arcs with actual story beats, the filler episodes can be whatever. But if you can make a show
at the moment,
where you can program in actual what
we'll get there 20 years.
At the moment, at the moment it's just it's like a funny little experiment. But eventually, it'll be like much more sophisticated.
If you can program in those story arcs and those character moments and everything else, like that could be a good time.
Now at the moment it's funny because there's like stuff like AI Seinfeld, and have you seen the AI steamed hams?
I haven't seen it, but I know about it.
It's called Unlimited Steam, and it's like the steamed hams scene from Simpsons, which is a famous meme, but the AI just keeps generating different ones depending on what prompt you give it. So Skinner is like cooking a different thing depending on what the AI is being told. And so you get these really weird out there, and because it latches on to certain things, like, when Skinner decides to, comes up with the idea of disguising the burger as his own cooking, and he goes, delightfully devilish, Seymour. The AI doesn't know how to interpret that phrase. So delightfully, it becomes like some of the episodes become really religious, and it just like gets really, it's just funny to see this computer kind of running in circles.
I want to see David Lynch do something with this.
Well, that's the thing. It is Lynchian without, but see, that's what I'm getting at. Is it's like it's interesting, but also like it's just like there's no soul or intention or history behind it. It's just. So on the one hand, it's really interesting, but on the other hand, it's just
it's good as a tool, nothing more than a tool.
Yeah, and I think like I've also heard of like Amazon and other movie. I think we talked about it once, like movie studios like using AI to
to see what
to
shows.
generate what ideas are the best, or what Twitter says is, algorithms, and that is a big problem, and that was something we complain about on almost every episode of this show.
The whole metric thing.
Yeah, is how movies now have just become so soulless, and so too many cooks in the kitchen, and so
sooner be too many bots in the
market,
too many bots in the kitchen.
Yeah, what is it like? Like it's so. What's the word I'm looking for?
It's just capitalist and uncomfortable.
But yeah,
it's capitalism's gross. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, it's the worst. Hashtag vote socialist. Yeah, but like Netflix has already done it with like one of their animes. They used background art was AI generated.
Ooh.
I did see a comic that was done by AI, like there was all AI generated artwork, and then the guy just put his own lettering over it and his own speech bubbles, and I actually thought it was pretty cool. So I think that if used by the right people, you can get something that does have soul in it.
Yeah, but is the art stolen?
Yeah, that's
the thing, though. That's the thing.
Yeah.
But it's like if you can generate the art as a base and then put your intention onto it, you can get genuine artwork. But it's these people out there who they just generate images and then just pass them online.
It's also people being dishonest about it.
Yeah, it's good. Like AI is good for transformative art. It's not good for generating artwork as is.
It's also, like we said, it's just like it's companies cutting corners to cut costs. Yeah. So like a company would, they're not doing it for the best intentions. They're doing it because it's quick and easy. Like on one hand, it's just like if you are a solo developer of a video game,
it's honestly
you could I know in High on Life they generated some AI posters to put up in the character's bedroom. Yeah, it's like that's kind of like, but yeah, it'd be interesting if you're a solo dev making a video game.
It's priceless. So things like I played around with this. I use a program called Game Maker, which is like we used it in high school when it was like super lame. Yeah. But now it's like Unity. It's like this huge, really powerful engine.
Cool.
Like Undertale, I think uses it. You've heard of Undertale?
I think so. Yeah.
Hotline Miami.
Okay.
Like it's like a big engine, and it can even do 3D now, and it's really powerful.
Cool.
But ChatGPT knows Game Maker language back to front, so you can say, hey GPT, how do I program this in Game Maker? Can you give me step-by-step instructions? And it tells you step 1, make this script, put this in, press the save button, do this. So in terms of debugging and helping you actually write the code, if you know a basic understanding of programming and how like a tool works, it can help you make a video game straight out the gate. So that's what I think it's cool for. As a, it's also
maybe it's not good as a crutch to just like I'm going to let this do it, but maybe to help people.
Yeah.
Who are
so there was a guy on Twitter who like a chief programmer for a company, and he said that the future, at least that he can see, is that it's a secretary. So if you know how to program, you can say generate me these scripts, but then you have to implement them accurately. So even though the code will be fine. It's like every company has their own way of implementing things, whatever. But with debugging, it's priceless. So if you have problems with your code, it's a computer. All it does is no programming, basically, So the way it's been trained. So if you can just slap your code into ChatGPT, it'll straight away tell you, here's the problem, here's how to fix it, here are alternative code suggestions. And then you just fix it.
This is another conversation which we won't go into, but I guess it's also like, is it the work that you put into it that makes it like what it is? Like, so if Jurassic Park was completely AI generated, but is the exact same movie that we got, but had no, work behind it other than putting it into an AI generator, rather than like going like, oh, Spielberg made this and the crew made the animatronics, and it's like, the product at the end is the same, is what I'm saying.
If you can get AI to that point where it can do that, then you can say we can interpret an artist. There's inherent value in it.
At that point, we need to be at the Star Trek level where it's just like you create that world by telling the computer, but it doesn't matter because it's not. There's no money involved.
That's right. So we'll still be able
it's just about the art.
We'll be able to enjoy those movies if we ever get to that stage, but that's like 1,000 years down the line.
Yeah, I'm just saying, like, theoretically.
As James said, we'll be dead within 10 years.
Yeah,
so
I
it
don't
doesn't
think we're going to
matter.
make it long. You know, Putin's got his finger on
There's
the button.
nukes, there's climate change.
Yeah, if climate change doesn't get us slowly,
The next virus
the nukes
will.
will get us quickly.
Or
And
the
we're
next.
running out of oil, so it's like...
Yeah, but like, because I heard like Ubisoft was like starting to use AI to write
Oh, the
stuff.
character, yeah, the
NPC dialogue.
NPC, the bark as they call them.
Yeah, and I'm like, if you're a solo dev, that would be interesting. It's like every
I mean, procedural generation's been a thing for a long time.
What's
That's true.
what's fascinating? So there was an RPG. I think it's it might be Banner or some other RPG. I can't remember exactly which one, but they hooked up a chatbot to it, and so all the NPCs had unique dialogue every time you
yeah,
interacted
That's
with them.
also cool.
Yeah.
So that's it. Brings that it's cool to breathe life into worlds that you've
So
created.
NPCs become little chatbots and you can have conversations with them. That's kind of
Yeah, you
cool.
could have live changing conversations,
See, that's interesting. Yeah,
and each playthrough would be different.
Yeah.
It's
yeah.
interesting. Yeah,
Until it starts,
Again,
until
function and
starts throwing ethnic slurs at you.
Yeah.
That's it. Train, yeah.
yeah.
Again, function and
And-
utility over just like, power, I suppose.
Yeah,
That's a thing, yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's the whole like laziness and it's such a complex issue, and it's still early. We're still early.
yeah. Well, who
Yeah.
knows what the landscape's going to look like
Yeah.
next year? Even
I think it's just because you got those kind of crypto bro, NFT tech bros who are
God.
like,
They're
oh, it's the future,
circling
bro.
They're circling the
Yeah, the
waters.
future, bro. And I'm like,
keep your hands
they-
away.
Yeah, exactly. It's like that's the problem. Is all these people who are using it for the wrong reasons.
Capitalists.
Yeah, and I'm like, I feel like there's something interesting. Technology itself isn't inherently bad. It's how we use it. Black
Yeah.
Mirror is scary, sure,
We should be
but
using-
the technology in Black Mirror is really cool. It's just the way people use it is
Yeah.
awful because humans are awful.
Yeah, that's right.
All right. I'm getting hungry.
Yeah, let's go. I'm tired. Sorry, I ranted.
That's
No,
okay.
no.
This is the conversation that's been kind of like...
Stewing.
You know the
Yeah.
meme of the guy with like the veins in his face and he's trying not to
Yes.
say... This has been us in the studio being like, I want to talk about
Yeah,
how
we
it's so
talk
bad,
about-
but we have to talk about the movies.
Yeah,
this is us getting it out.
yeah.
Thanks for listening, everyone. Please like and share the Tuesday Review Facebook page, the
Do
Twitter
I-
page, and the Instagram page.
I don't know if I'll be able to find it in time. That the outro that I generated. I'll see. Give me a couple of seconds, see if I can find it. That was a Kanye meme in the group chat.
Kanye is now cool with the Jews because he watched Jonah
'Cause he
Hill
watched
in
Jonah.
21 Jump Street. That's how you know he's a reformed man.
Oh my god.
So trash.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah, I did generate it, but yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. If you want to keep up with our latest episodes and movie reviews, be sure to follow us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Tuesday Review Podcast, which is not our
Yeah, I told you it lies,
handle.
James.
Yeah, it just made that up. We love hearing from our listeners, so feel free to drop us a message or leave us a comment on any of our social media platforms. As always, thank you so much for tuning in to the Tuesday Review. We couldn't do this without your support, and we appreciate every single one of our listeners. And in the words of Kevin Costner's character in Field of Dreams, if you build it, they will come. Until next time, have a great week, and we'll catch you in the next episode. It generated that when I told it to make an outro. Some of those sentiments are very true. We do appreciate our listeners.
We do.
And if you built it, they will come.
They will come, yeah.
All right. The actual socials are at Tuesday Review AU for Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. Yeah, we'll see you next week. Adios, cousins.